Walk you through a pretty basic pump system here. We've got our catchment tank, our pump house. Water comes out of the ground from the tank through an isolation valve, Y strainer, a 3-phase 2-horsepower motor with 4-stage pump. Discharge runs up, got an automatic air release valve, our discharge check valve, our pre-filter pressure gauge, pre-filter pressure transducer that also goes into the VFD to tell the VFD to start and stop, another air release valve, automatic. System then splits, runs down to our pressure tank inlet, pressure reservoir, also runs underneath the filters to an isolation valve for filter bypass. We have that currently shut. Runs through our particulate filters. We're going to do a 20 micron, 5 micron, and 1 micron. Then we come up to our filter UV manifold where we've got another pressure transducer. This one's tied into their online SCADA so they can see the system pressure after the filters and compare it to the pressure before to tell if the filters need to be replaced. Here's our liquid-filled pressure gauge for our post-filter system pressure. Then split out with a manifold. We've got two 12 GPM UV bulbs in parallel for increased flow. They come down. Then we've got a control solenoid here hooked into the mains power. If the power is out, the solenoid will shut so that no untreated water that hasn't been sanitized by the UV system, makes it into the distribution. So if power is lost, solenoid closes, then we've got a simple isolation valve, then it drops down underground and goes out to the distribution. Real basic. Here's our UV ballast. Just a real basic, simple booster pump and pressure system. Over here we've got our electronics, 2 junction boxes that catch our circuits coming in, circuits for lighting and receptacles, all our controls from the tank. Inside the tank we've got a low water shutdown float switch and a pressure transducer that also goes into the SCADA to tell the customer the level in the tank. And then we've got a little Lens AC Tech 3-phase drive running on a single-phase input for our 2-horsepower booster pump. Works real great. The system's been here a few years now and everything's just running right along. We're here today for a service, so we'll be changing out the filter and UV bulbs. And I'll be talking telly through that whole thing for some training. Whole thing, man. So the first thing to get started is we got to get the system pressure to 0. So we don't want to drain the whole distribution system. So we have this isolation valve down here by our control solenoid. We could shut him. Good. And then we also don't want the pump to kick on when we drain the system pressure. So let's just turn the pump off. You got 2 choices for that. You can hit the stop on the Lens Tech, or you can just kill the breaker. Go ahead and hit the stop and see if that green light goes away. It does. Good. So it shouldn't turn on. This is good for what we're doing now. If you were going to be working on inside the motor or anything electrical, we would isolate the breaker. But for just taking system pressure offline, this is totally adequate. So we've got the drive disabled. The pump shouldn't start. We'll see if it does, but we'll test that after we get everything back up. Go ahead and open up your hose bib, and that should bleed the system pressure. And if the filters are really bad, this post-filter pressure is going to drop really slowly. So we'll see. You can just crank it. As long as it's not spraying my truck, you can just wide open. It's falling. Good. So pressure's falling. You got that water running somewhere good. Yep, water's running good. Okay, perfect. So now we got the system pressure falling. We've got a wrench. This filter wrench works good on the housings, but I like to get a big pair of channel locks. So let's get a big pair of channel locks. Makes life easier for those.
Which one's the system pressure? This one?
That is the post-filter pressure, and that's pre-filter pressure. So you see how the pre-filter is sitting at 24? What's the post-filter?
Post-filter is like, yeah, a little over 24.
30 maybe? And that's because that gauge, there's pressure coming a little bit backwards from there, but not very much. A way to drain that faster would be to open up that bypass valve. Yeah, but you know what, let's not worry about it. It's going to come down either way. So we'll just let that system pressure fall. You got channel locks. We're going to need the pressure tank gauge because we're also going to service this pressure tank. And we can do that right here. Man, look at that. I even labeled what you're supposed to set it to. I just made this whole system so easy to service. And there it went. The pressure just tanked to 0. As soon as the system pressure drops below the pressure in the reservoir of the pressure tank, the gauges will just boom, drop down. And that's what we just had there. So, Kelly, the system pressure is at 0, but I can still hear water moving through the pipes. So there's one more valve we need to shut. Which one would that be? Because we don't want any water happen. When we open up those filters, there's going to be water going everywhere. So what other valve do we need to shut? That would work, but if we want to just isolate the whole system, what would we do? Perfect. Yep, that one right there ahead of the Y strainer.
Do not shut.
Yep, it says do not shut so that people don't run in here and shut it thinking that that's the solution to their problems. So just for smart folks. So now that that's shut, there should be 0 pressure in the whole system. The strainer, all of this stuff should be equal. So then you've got the hose on there. You could go just do a visual check on the end of your hose. Is there any water coming out of it? Cool. Oh, careful. So now these filter housings have these little red buttons on top. These are air releases when you're priming it full of water after you've got it in service. But they work good in a pinch for checking that there's no pressure in there. So just press down on one of them, and if water goes spraying everywhere, then something's wrong, like a gauge is lying to you. But you didn't see any water come out? Perfect. Okay, so you can go ahead and take off your filter housings. Have you ever changed these before?
I think like twice.
Okay, so the trick is to get a good grip up high with the channel lock, the correct direction. Yep, like not the other way. Flip it around. Yeah, because you're going to be going like this. So you want it like so. And open this guy up all the way. Okay, and you want a good grip on there, and you don't want to drag across the plastic. You want it to actually spin. So all you're doing is just breaking it loose. Then once it comes loose, you'll do it the rest by hand. So you're going that way, lefty-loosey.
That's right.
No, because it's threaded in from the bottom, so it's going to be lefty that way. There you go, yep. And then you could take them off and do them one more time. And then if you think it's going to be hand loose from here, you think so?
Yeah.
Cool, then just set your tool down. So now the trick with this is you're going to be turning them by hand, and you got to be supporting them down here. The whole thing's filled with water, and you're probably going to get a little wet, but if you rock it as you're lowering it, you're going to get a lot wet. So the idea is if you keep this vertical, you're not going to get wet at all. And you can hear the air going into the system and the water draining out. So let it do that.
Okay.
Let it finish doing that because it's draining right now. Hear the air? Yeah, perfect. Okay, go ahead and just keep spinning it, but support the bottom. So your goal is to rotate it off and keep it vertical when it falls. You know, and don't let it fall on the pipes. So you're supporting it by the bottom. Yep. That's what you just want to hold that bottom hand so it just slides on your body. Yeah, there you go. And once it's clear of the threads, you're just going to lower it straight down, and you're going to walk outside, and right outside the door, you're just going to tip the whole thing over so the filter and all the water spills outside. Yeah, perfect. Now, one other thing, pause for a second, is this O-ring we want to be really fragile with, and we can just take it away if it looks like it's going to fall off. Sometimes they stay on, sometimes they fall off. I'll put them there. Nice. There's our 20 mic.
Filter.
And then how's the inside of the casing look? We're going to wipe that out, make that all nice and clean. So we'll get a clean rag. But let's get all 3 of them out first. Okay. So you can just set them there in the gravel. Yep, perfect. And then let's do number 2. So yeah, main things that you're looking out for is that O-ring, making sure that it doesn't get damaged or misplaced. That O-ring is really soft rubber. So if you press on it or pull on it or squish it, it'll hold that shape. And we don't have any spare O-rings with us, so we're just real careful.
Why don't we bring the filter here when we do this? Because we have that bucket, right?
Bring the what?
We have a filter here bucket.
Oh, we totally forgot that. Like with soap and sponges and stuff?
Yeah, no,
yeah, I just wipe them out with a rag. To me, it seems silly to scrub it like dishes when the inside of this pipe is just as dirty as that housing. Yeah. And I can't scrub the inside of the pipe. You know what I mean? Yeah. So as long as the O-ring's good, let's just take it off just to be safe. We'll set them there. But yeah, because I can't scrub the insides of the pipe, I don't really go crazy with the filter housing. But we do want to wipe it out, you know, because it's something we can do, so we'll clean it a little bit. But as far as like using dish soap and stuff to clean it off, it seems a bit excessive. Good. Yeah, I appreciate how you're being really conscious with your forces there. That's good. We use these nice aluminum brackets that don't rust. But sometimes if you're on someone else's system, you got to watch out if it's just plain steel, because all this can be all rusted up. And before you dump this one out, I want to get a good shot of the filter coming out of the casing when you need it. I'll get the O-ring for you. Okay, let me get out there first.
Ready?
Yep, just right next to the others. Awesome. Okay, yeah, let's bring them in. And you could, they should stand on the floor on their own. And then it doesn't matter which one is with which, well, as long as we put them back where they need to be. So yeah, I'd just grab grab a rag or 2 or 3, and then yeah, just give them a wipe. Just till all that dirt comes off, you can kind of see it. And like I said, make it as clean as you can, but don't go crazy. The insides of all the pipes look just as bad as they do. Yeah. How's that? Look better?
Yeah, it's a little dirty, but
Oh no, it's pretty good.
not really.
Yeah, better than it was. And these are really clean.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll find them and they're really, really dirty. But again, the level of dirt that you see inside of them is exactly what is going to be inside of each pipe along the whole system. So it's just kind of the nature of it. Yeah, if they've never been cleaned, then they're really bad. But these look great. All right, so now you're going to get your new filter cartridges, and you're going to start with the 20 mic, or let's do it in reverse, in the same order, reverse of the order you put them in. So you're going to start with your finest filter first, your 1 micron. Yep. You can go ahead and open him up, and we'll just make a nice pile of trash in the corner before we go. We'll take all that trash with us. So we like these Watts paper cartridges. They work great. Lots of surface area, high flow rate. So there really is no up or down. The way it works is the flow comes in and surrounds the filter, and then here, hold it. Yeah, comes in and surrounds the filter, and then the treated water comes out through the center. So there's a little stud in the bottom of the filter housing. I don't know if you can see that. That little circle down there. That circle is what the filter rests on. So as long as, if you place it in there, you'll see it kind of finds its nest.
Yeah.
Does that feel like it's in there?
Yeah, it's not moving the bottom.
Cool, great. Yeah, see how it kind of sits and then it's even like that? So there you go, there's your number 1. So pick him up and bring him over here. And he's your last stage, so he's going there. We set the O-ring on real gentle. We don't want to force it. It should just snap kind of in place right where it needs to be. Perfect. And then you're going to take them under here, and you're going to kind of, just like when you're doing a plumbing fitting, you're going to kind of go backwards, yeah, and keep it nice and square and straight to the threads until you feel it drop. Because these plastic threads are really easy to cross thread if you're not careful. Did you feel it drop? Good. And now you're tightening it. Does it feel like it's caught? It looks like it's caught. Yeah, I mean, like caught, like it's in the threads. Yeah. It catched the threads, yeah. Perfect. So then what I want you to do is just take it till it's hand tight, and we'll do all 3, and then you'll come back with the tool and send all 3 with the tool. So now you're going to do your middle stage, which is a 5 micron. Perfect. And this is how I like to do it, just step by step, real simple, and not too many steps at once. You know, take them all off, get them all emptied, get them all cleaned, put them all back. And that way I don't have them all in the cartridges and mix up which one goes where. So there you go, your 5 mic looks good. You can bring it over and go ahead and set your O-ring on. It's nice, O-ring's nice and flat. Yeah, looks great. And then same thing, you try and center it, spin it backwards. As long as it's going in the thread straight and not crooked at all, it should find it. But you always spin it backwards so you don't cross thread. There you go. Wonderful.
Okay.
And then your 20 mic is your first stage, which is the last one we're putting back. We take it from 20 down to 5 and then down to 1. And the idea is the 1 micron is a good size to use last ahead of the UV. All those little particles, picture them like boulders in the water that bacteria and pathogens and stuff can hide in the cracks and shadows of. So if you get it down to a very, very fine particle size, 1 micron, it's so small that the UV covers the whole thing and there's no nooks and crannies or shadows for the biology to hide in. So you got the O-ring nice and flat all the way around. Almost. If you need to set it on the floor and use 2 hands, you can. Totally allowed. Sometimes they're a little tricky, but you don't want to force them. You know, you just want to be really gentle with them. Is it staying put?
Yeah.
If it's not staying put, the last resort too is to put a little silicone grease on there, and that'll act as an adhesive, you know, like a sticky grease, and that'll keep it in place while you're playing with it. Same like if you were using a gasket or something. And you got to watch out too when you're feeding it in there that O-ring doesn't get bumped. But I think you looked good. You looked good. But it's just something to be mindful of. Perfect. There's your drop. And then yeah, if you ever get any resistance, it's probably cross-threaded. So then you want to back off. Because the threads are so coarse, like big, it's really easy. It's really easy to cross thread them. Cool. Then you'll grab your channel locks, and you're just going to do in the same order in reverse. Start here, and you're just going to grab it, and you're going to righty-tighty, and you know just snug. You're not going to go, but you're also going to get it pretty tight. You kind of felt how tight they were when we got here, yeah? Yeah. And yeah, you don't want to do like a bouncing motion, just a nice, steady, and strong. And better a little too loose, because we can tighten them later if they leak. You know, or better to do them a little loose than to go so tight that they get damaged when we tighten them. So that looks great. And these little wrenches work, but the channel locks just give you more length, more leverage, makes it easier. These always feel like they're going to break. We leave them here for the homeowner in case that's what they want to do, but for the professional, we'll use those channel locks. Okay, so that takes care of our particle filter swap. So now we'll move down here to the UVs. We already know we've got no system pressure. First thing we want to do is unplug the UV ballast. And when they lose power, they send off a little alarm. Also, if the bulb burns out, they send off that alarm too. So with the green light on the ballast, that means these are okay. The bulbs are good for 1 year, and then they need to be replaced because they slowly dim over time. All right, so I'm going to talk you through getting the bulbs out of each one. So the first step is getting the bulb disconnected from the ballast cord. So let's see if this should just come right up. It might be screwed in. Yeah, that one is screwed in a little bit. So we're going to loosen the casing. Grab a Phillips head screwdriver. Let's just loosen that screw off.
All the way or just a little bit?
A little bit more. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay, stop. Okay, so now that you got both of the set screws loosened, what those do is they keep, there's 2 pieces here. There's the casing and there's the bulb inside. So now the bulb attachment is loose to come. Here, I want you to do this one. So see this metal piece? You're going to pull him up gently. There's a UV bulb attached to that. So as it comes loose, it's going to want to jump up. So then just pull it up. Okay, do you see the bulb?
Yeah.
Now it might be hot. I don't know. Give it a little check with your other hand. How hot is that? Probably not too bad. How about this ceramic part? How bad is that?
No.
Not too bad. So you're going to disconnect this connector from the ceramic end without dropping the bulb. Make sense? Perfect. So you could just set him aside somewhere he's not going to get wet. That's good. And then just take the bulb straight out of the unit.
And these ones are the old
And you can touch the middle of the glass. You can touch anywhere on there. And even on the new ones, I don't mind. You can touch them wherever. I've never had a problem with touching the bulb. So let's just set him aside. Yeah, we'll worry about packaging later. So he's aside. So now you can do the same thing with number 1. We loosened the little set screw. Yep, so now you should just come up and you just do all these moves real gentle because of the glass. And same thing, you'll disconnect him. Perfect, and then you can pull the bulb straight out the top. I like doing my UVs vertical because of how easy it is to get the bulbs out, and then in a second here you'll see how easy it is to do the quartz sleeves vertical versus trying to slide the quartz sleeve in horizontally. So let's get these guys out of the way because we don't want them wet. You could just hang them up on the ballast or something like that. Yeah, that's perfect. So now we'll start on number 2. So this is what's holding the quartz sleeve in, and you can already see from when we loosened it, a little bit of water came out. So you're just going to loosen this off, like so. It should just be a little more than hand tight. And there's a little bit of water coming, that's okay. We'll just let that water come. So that's it. That's basically, that's all this water up here in the manifold coming out down here. So now you're just going to grab that quartz sleeve with both hands or one hand, and you're going to pull it straight up and out, just like you did the bulb. Don't put it at an angle. Keep it going straight so it doesn't rub. So that's quartz, not glass. So it's very brittle, and when it does break, it's very sharp. So we want to be really careful not to shatter that. And we need to disassemble that piece. So hold your right hand on the quartz sleeve and take your left hand, and it should just kind of slide off. Perfect. And then we need that little O-ring, and it should just roll off the end. Perfect. Okay, so we discard him. We have our top. Let's bring our top back over here. Set your O-ring down in there. Perfect, that's fine. We're gonna do it, and then just go ahead and set him on the strut. So that's good, there's 2, totally disassembled. Now you can do the same thing with 1. You're gonna loosen him by hand, and a little bit of water is gonna come out. And you just kind of let it do its thing and equalize. Although it might have, all the extra water might have come out of 1. And so you're not going to lift by this metal because this may or may not detach from the glass. And if you want, you could lift the glass up a little and take that metal piece off here. Is one option. You just don't want that quartz thing to bang around, and you don't want to lose that O-ring or the cap. So you could set them here or down there. Just we want to keep track of each piece as we go. And you always want to be doing stuff with your hands so that you're doing one thing at a time. You're not like holding this and grabbing that and twisting and turning. So now your next step is, pull that sleeve out straight up so it doesn't rub on the sides of the chamber. Very good. And we don't want to break it. And these sleeves too, they can come dirty. You can clean them. But these are ready to be swapped. They're about 3 years old. So we're just going to replace them with brand new, get the system back up to perfect. So now it's the same thing in reverse. Okay. We'll start with our quartz sleeves, which are in this longer tube. And so they're very, very fragile. And I think I put them in there with a rag. Do you see a rag? That's the end I put them in with. I also never trust the ends of these tubes because they can just pop off sometimes. So, I mean, you can lift it straight up, but just have it on the ground like that. If you had it in the air and it wanted to fall, it could fall through. So you just need to get one out. And if you need to tilt it towards yourself, basically solve the problem of get a bulb out of there. Or a sleeve, excuse me.
And you said it's okay if I touch it a little bit?
I don't mind if you touch it a little bit. It's just the name of the game. There's no way to not touch it, and I'd rather you get fingerprints on it than break it. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's kind of my philosophy. Okay. So we're just going to do the same thing like we did the filters. We'll start with this one and then do him after. So you're just going to slide him down. Yep. And he's got to go straight in. And that's why having him vertical is a lot easier than having him horizontal, because you just let gravity help you with the alignment. And once you have about 6 or 8 inches sticking out, we're going to stop and we're going to put the cap on. Okay. But I want you to take it all the way down and see how that feels, because there's a spring in the bottom of the chamber that holds the actual UV quartz sleeve. So keep going. Do you feel the spring at the bottom, kind of? Yeah. Yeah, perfect. So that spring is way down here. And if you weren't going straight up and down, to get it to line up with that string going horizontal is almost impossible. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
And you're also fighting against some water displacement. Yeah? Perfect. So now you're going to take your cap and you're going to just roll your O-ring down about 3/4 of an inch. Maybe to about here, kind of like how you saw it on the other ones. And just, yeah, be real careful, take your time. And it just rolls down. Yeah, right about there. Okay. Perfect, and it'll slide if it needs to. And then you're just gonna flip that cap over and set it on top. And it should go down around the O-ring.
So maybe put it up a little bit.
Well, let's just see. No, that's it right there. Yeah, so let's just slide it up just a hair. Go ahead and lift the O-ring just a little bit. Yeah, that's good. And so the seal is made from this cap pressing on the O-ring. Okay. That's what keeps the water, because in the sleeve is where the bulb is, so that's good. Yeah, that's good. In the sleeve is where the bulb is. Right there is good. Yeah. So you're just going to lower it down, and then when you get close, you're going to bring him down. Do the same thing. You're going to go backwards on the threads till you feel it drop. Yep, you're good. Backwards on the threads till you feel it drop, and then you're just going to hand tighten it. Did you feel it drop?
I did, but then cross-threaded.
Try just going forward and see if you can find the threads without crossing them. Oh, hold on a second. Okay, so just go ahead and see. You don't have to try backing it off, just try sending it forward. And if you feel it get physical right away, then you know you've cross-threaded.
That's good.
Feels good? Yeah. And just take it down until it's hand tight. And you can even give it a little, because you're working against that spring down there. And then if you look right up in there, you can see the quartz sleeve is resting right on there.
On the O-ring?
Well, right on the top.
Or the little connection piece.
Right on the top of the connector piece, right there.
Right there.
Yeah, essentially. Right on that white Teflon piece. Okay, so you can set him down. You're going to grab your next quartz sleeve. And bring him over. Slide him straight in until you have about 8 inches left. And, if your hands were filthy, maybe wash your hands before you get to this step. You know what I mean? But if you got clean hands like you do right now, it's all good. It's just the name of the game. Okay, go ahead and put your thing on. And your goal is to not let any water get in here. No water got in there, right?
I don't know. No.
Like when you just dropped it there for a second, did water get inside?
No.
Okay, good. Because that's the idea, is the bulb stays dry.
Bulb stays dry.
Yeah. Good. Cap. Set him on. Bring him down. Looks good. And then just tighten him up till he's nice and hand tight. Okay, so at this point, you could go a little more with your hand tight. That'll come with age. So at this point, we've got the filters changed. We've got the UV bulb sleeves changed, the quartz sleeves is, but we don't have the bulbs in. I like to check for leaks at this point. I want to know if the bulbs are going to, before I put the UV bulbs in there, and if there was some horrible leak, I don't want the bulbs to get all wet. So what I want to do is get the system back up and running, make sure there's no leaks, and then put the bulbs in a pressurized system. Does that make sense?
Okay.
At this point though, before we pressurize the system, there's one more thing we need to check. What is that? What do we check with a system with no pressure? There's actually two more things.
What do we check with a system with no pressure?
Good answer. We're going to check the pressure tank, and we're going to check the Y strainer. Okay. So we want to see what residual pressure is in that tank with no system pressure applied to it. So you'll grab our pressure tank test rig, which is just an air chuck and a pressure gauge and a ball valve. Go ahead and throw him on the Schrader valve of the pressure tank. So we always want 0 psi in the system when we check our pressure tanks. That way we're seeing the bladder of the tank.
Only the pressure.
Okay, so yeah, we want to see the bladder of the pressure tank with no system pressure. So we'll shut our valve. What do you got in the pressure tank?
38.
That's perfect. It even says on the pressure tank here, set to 38 psi. If it didn't say that, we want it 4 or 5 psi below where our VFD calls to come on. So that's perfect. If it was low, we would recharge it with an air compressor. And if it couldn't hold a charge, then it would mean the tank is shot.
Okay.
You hear how it sounds hollow?
Yeah.
That's a good sound. That's what you want it to sound like, hollow. So you can go ahead and take your chuck off, put your cap back on, nice and tight. So the pressure tank's good. So we can put that tool aside. And now we got one more thing with no system pressure that we want to test.
Check the Y.
The Y strainer, exactly.
Okay.
So we've got the tank isolation shut, right? And now we're going to go ahead and just open up that Y strainer. Do you know how to do that? Each of those things just lifts fully opposite, each one, and then this whole cap is going to come off. Yep, and you might have to twist a little to kind of get it to come.
This whole thing.
This piece right here.
Okay.
Yep. Pretty stubborn. Yep, good. Cool. And then there's our actual strainer. So we pull that out, and then we look at it. How's it look?
Looks a little dirty. Not too bad though.
I agree, a little dirty. Perfect. But not too bad. So we can just tap them out, call it good. And so the way this works is it sets back in here,
Okay.
like so.
Was it supposed to come out with that?
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's okay. As long as it's seated in this lid like that. Then you take the whole lid, put them on an angle, slide them in like that, put him on, and then drop each of these back down. Are they going? Don't force them. Okay, take them off. Yeah, see how it got out of alignment? So this needs to stay in there like that and not fall out. Go straight in all the way. No, you had it. Yep. So you're going all the way. These need to be in that position. There you go. Yeah. See how different that feels, and then the top one. So if you meet that resistance, you don't force it. That means something's not lined up right. So do you feel confident in checking Y strainers now?
Yeah.
Okay. See, what I didn't do was just grab it from you and do it myself, because I want you to get that hands-on appreciation. Okay. So we've done all our checks with no system pressure. We're ready to prime everything. What does prime mean?
Like get all the air out of it.
Exactly. So what are we going to open first? The one from the tank? Yep, go ahead. That's just the tank isolation valve.
Tank isolation valve.
Yep, go ahead and open him up. And you can hear our automatic air release valve letting out the air. So the tank level is up here, you know. And so there's enough pressure from the tank to push all this air out.
Cool, wasp nest.
Nice. And then, so now we got water up to here, in theory. It's running along. It's coming over here. It's probably going out of this hose. Let's go ahead and shut that hose. And then we want to get the air out of these tanks. But let's use pressure to do it so it'll be faster. Let's shut our filter isolation valve. Good. So now our pump is only sucking from the tank and working against the pressure tank. Everything from the filters and the UV and the discharge system is isolated. So now let's re-enable the drive. See if you can do that by hitting the green button.
Okay, green button run.
Error.
It says error. So it's set up in there that green won't enable it after you hit the red button. You need to do a power cycle.
Okay.
So outside in the load center, there should be a 2-pole breaker that says like VFD or pump. I think it's a 2-pole 20. Yep.
There's 2 out. Okay. Off. And then on again?
Nope. Come here. So these drives have capacitors.
Okay.
When you first turn them off, the capacitors are going to hold a charge. So you got to wait until the display fully shuts off. It's using DC power to run its brains and to run the output of the motor for that matter too.
Okay.
So now the screen's totally off. Go ahead and go out there and turn on the breaker. And when you do, that pump is going to take off and start running. And that's okay. We've got everything isolated. And hopefully it's primed. Yep, go for it. Yep. It's waking up. There we go. You can hear it pushing more air out now that it's actually cranking. Our system pressure should be climbing. We can just shut that.
Oh, that's on automatic.
Pressure's climbing. Our flexes are creating a little bit of harmonics, but that's okay. It's only in this low pressure range, so system's pressure's climbing. And at this point, we're just checking for leaks. So don't worry about that. We'll deal with that at the end. So now, I want you to crack the filter isolation valve. Just till you hear water start to go. A little more. You hear flow? Good. Leave it like that. You shouldn't hear air anywhere. And you shouldn't see water anywhere. If you don't, go ahead and open it up all the way. Slowly though. Yep, then open it. I like how you did that, nice and slow. And you can hear our automatic air release valve is letting all the air that was inside these filter housings is making its way up and out. You could use these red buttons too, but I like just using the air release valve. So you see how it got all the air, then it sprayed a little bit of water, then it shut itself. So that's almost all the air is out. We can check here. There's a little bit of air, but once you see water on those red buttons, you know you're good. I just call it good. That's why I like putting that automatic air release in there, then I don't have to putz around with those red buttons. It takes it all out. The pump went ahead and shut off. Because the system's at the system set point. We're good that way, but we'll do all our pump checks in a minute. Okay. The other thing I'm not seeing is any water spraying out of the UV bulb, so we'll finish our UV bulb installation. Awesome. So we're gonna get one new UV bulb, we're gonna carry it over, you're gonna slide it down in, but these don't have a spring at the bottom, so if you just drop it, it'll fall to the bottom of the quartz sleeve, and that's bad. And if you can avoid touching the glass, good on you. But like I said, I'd prefer to have fingerprints on the glass than a broken bulb. Yeah, you just lay them down. She's good. As long as you're not tripping on anything, it's okay. So let's do him first. And you're just going to lower him in there. And then which of these is number one is this guy. Yep. So just get him all the way down till you got about 6 inches sticking out, just like before. And again, you can touch the glass. I don't mind if you touch the glass. I haven't had a problem touching UV glass. It's not ideal, but you know, just have clean hands when you do it. So that's good. What you can't do is drop it in there. So now you're going to take the number one connector and you're going to just push the connector on the same way as it was when you got there. There's no polarity. Okay. It either fits or it doesn't. And you want it nice and snug all the way down. Is that snug on there good? All the way pushed in?
Yeah.
Great. Yep, that's great. Then you're going to transfer and hold it by this guy. And you're just going to guide him all the way back down in how he was. And it kind of has an O-ring there.
And I just push it in,
Just push it. Yep, right there.
And then
it's pretty gentle. And then you can tighten that set screw either by hand or with a screwdriver. All he's doing is keeping that thing from lifting up, which isn't really going to happen. Yeah. Good. Now do the same thing with bulb number 2.
Bulb number 2.
You'll see there's only one way for them to align. And again, there's no polarity as long as you got it lined up correctly. Yeah, see, there you go. It should go all the way down. Great. And then that'll hold it. And then you just drop it down until he's snug. And because that screws in the back, you're only going to get your fingers on there, but that's okay. And we know the system's up to pressure by our gauge up here, and we don't need to worry about the bulbs getting wet. So now you can plug in ballast 1 and ballast 2. We should have green lights on both of them. And now the bulbs are on. And you never want to look at a UV bulb that's lit. It'll mess your eyes up bad, yeah.
Burn you.
Yeah, UV is bad for you, go figure. Okay, so that is filtration and UVs. Now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and clean up the old UV and bulbs.